Dr. Mark Sanchez is a board-certified OBGYN specializing in reproductive endocrinology and infertility. He's going to discuss the latest technology in fertility treatments. Thanks for joining us, Dr. Sanchez.
Thanks for having me today.
Now, I know when I was growing up, I always heard about the test tube babies and things like that. First of all, is that an accurate description of what happens?
It always paints a really kind of funny picture to think of a test tube baby, but it's really not. They're actually made in a petri dish, which is a small round little saucer, more like than a tube.
The first IVF conception occurred in 1978 and became mainstream in the 1990s.
There's been millions of babies that have been born via that process now for various reasons. It could be anything from ladies' tubes don't work to a male factor of some type to other endocrinopathies that are going on with the couple. There's been enormous changes that have occurred since that time in overall pregnancy rates and the way the process is done.
Technology has drastically improved since the process was first introduced, as well as techniques to allow for gender selection. When you talk about selecting different things, gender selection, immediately my mind goes, there's some moral issues. But what I've come to realize is that gender selection can be specifically to avoid certain diseases?
Yeah,
Genetic illnesses.
Absolutely. You could have things like Duchenne's muscular dystrophy, which is going to happen to little boys because they only have the one X chromosome that it's carried on. And so you could, so to speak, weed out that genetic defect in that particular embryo prior to transferring it into the mom.
Gender selection can also be used to eliminate the potential for sickle cell anemia in African American children.
I was thinking that it was almost like you could select off of a menu at a restaurant that, okay, I want a boy, I want him to be blonde hair, blue eyes, I want him to be 6 feet tall. It's not like that at all.
No, it's not like that at all. I mean, it's kind of funny that you would think of it like that, and most people I think do, but then you realize what you're really doing is we have a cohort of eggs from the would-be mother, and we create embryos from those. We can then choose from that group a boy or a girl. We can't say, we're going to make you a boy or a girl. So once the genetics have taken place between the egg and sperm, you've created that early embryo. At that point, we can say, okay, this one's a girl, this one's a boy, this one's got Down syndrome, for example. And we can choose out the little boy or little girl based on, whatever reason you're looking at.
Because initially they're just a blastula, a collection of cells and things like that. How far along are they developed before you can see the traits and the sex and all of that?
So what will initially happen on day one of a lady's eggs being removed from her body through a simple procedure done in the office, we'll take that egg, we'll fertilize it with a sperm, and then we put it in our incubators to grow for the next couple days after that. So on day 3, we take a laser and we cut into basically was the shell of the early pre-embryo.
In 2 days, trophoblasts emit from the incision and genetic analysis is performed on those cells.
That piece of tissue isn't baby, that's what's going to become the placenta.
Okay.
Inside of that blastocyst is the inner cell mass. That's the baby.
You're still only a handful of days old, if you will, and it's still just a group of cells at that point.
5 days old at that point. Wow. And that analysis takes 24 hours.
By day 6, all the genetic information needed to determine the best embryonic candidate has been gathered.
And then the embryo transfer will occur on the would-be mom through a simple procedure in the office, which is similar to her pap smear.
What is the percentage rate for in vitro fertilization?
In general, sort of all comers for women that are 29 and below, 30 and below, basically approaches about 65 to 70% depending on the individual lab. The best indicator for success is the age of the would-be mom. That what obstetricians call advanced maternal age is 35.
After 35, the success rate begins to decline. By 42, it is likely the woman will need a donor egg.
Now, I know predominantly we're talking about female fertility issues, but do you treat any fertility issues for men?
Yeah, all the time, every day. Mostly, obviously with the man, you're looking at his sperm and their viability, the functionality, the morphology, and things like the count.
Certain medications and treatments can cause a man's count to be low or less virile. Congenital issues such as undescended testicles can also be the cause.
Certain things can be fixed with medicines. Sometimes surgeries are required on the men. Other times you can't fix the underlying malady. You just have to work with what you have, which may be a very low sperm count, and that functionally goes into doing in vitro on most of those.
What about things like diet and things? I remember being told growing up that if you drink too much soda, you're going to have a low sperm count.
That's actually real. Lifestyle is important. If you've got diabetes, hypertension, you're obese, you smoke a lot, you take recreational drugs that you shouldn't maybe take.
Certain sodas contain dyes, which have actually been banned in Europe, but not the United States, which can affect sperm count.
all those things can affect the sperm, and sometimes some significant lifestyle changes in people will make their sperm counts and function become normal again.
Same question, but for females. Is there anything we can do to maybe keep our reproductive organs functioning for longer?
Don't get old.
Don't get old.
3D bioprint, yeah, exactly.
That may be in the future for some people, but the problem with the ovaries with wonderful, fabulous ladies is that they have a lifespan, I should say, of half the lady.
Got it.
So if you're living to 85, your ovaries are making it to 42, 43. And nothing changes that because men make more sperm. They keep making it until they die.
And there's a finite amount of eggs.
There's a finite number of eggs. Yeah. So when you're born, you have about 400,000 eggs when you're a baby. And by the time you're in menopause, the eggs are functionally all gone. And you don't make more of them. And the eggs are removed monthly. Yeah. And when they're gone, they're gone.
What type of procedures are out there that you're able to reverse?
Tubal ligations that are reversed, and then also vasectomy reversals.
Okay.
And so vasectomy reversals go to usually a urologist or reproductive urologist. And tubal ligation reversals, we do a lot of those. So when you look at tubal ligation reversals as a whole, all types, in other words, whatever type of tubal they had, it doesn't really matter. We're looking at them lumped together. About 70% of the time they'll be successful.
Okay.
All right. So, and that's
those are good odds.
No, there are good odds. I mean, I always tell people you made a decision once upon a time in your life.
Sure.
And something changed, and who hasn't had that at some point in some level, and we were going to do our best to try to take you back in time and make that never have happened. And sometimes they can't be repaired, but the vast majority of the time we can repair them, we can reverse them, and they'll get pregnant.
Now, what about multiple births? Because I actually have a friend of mine who was going through fertility treatments, and you hear about it in the news a lot, where they end up with, she had triplets, but I've heard septuplets before because of fertility.
It's not very frequent at all now. The numbers are very clear that those have dropped over the last decade as opposed to going up because the cell culture has gotten better, the techniques have gotten better, fewer embryos were transferred back into in vitro, and frankly what happens, they're usually couples who are going through what's called ovulation induction and intrauterine inseminations, which means you're making the young lady make multiple eggs, and then they either have intercourse or have an insemination, and it's uncontrolled. And so that's gone a little bit out of favor as IVF pregnancy rates have gone much higher, where we can control whether the baby's got Duchenne muscular dystrophy or not, and it's a boy and you're putting in a single embryo.
The future of fertility treatment is what is known as third-party genetics or reproduction.
Basically, if someone has a mitochondrial defect that's causing a disease in their family line, you can take the mitochondria, which are the small little organelles inside of a cell, and they act as sort of the battery of the cell. And you take a donor egg, but not the DNA of the donor's egg, you just take the mitochondria out and you put it into the woman's egg that has the need for those extra batteries and combine that with a sperm, and you've got an embryo then.
Because mitochondria has its own unique DNA, the fertilized egg would then essentially have DNA from 3 different parties.
But that's one of the major things that's on the horizon that a lot of people will be talking about, that you'll see in the news coming up. The UK is really the only sort of Western country that's okayed that under very particular circumstances. So cell culture, genetic analysis looking at embryos so that a single embryo transfer could be done routinely to eliminate the chances of twins and triplets and things of that nature so that you have a normal risk pregnancy instead of a high risk pregnancy. That's really where the horizon is on things, is the genetic analysis to do a single embryo transfer so that we eliminate that high risk pregnancy for moms.
And ballpark cost and insurance.
Yeah, those are the questions. And so the insurance is highly variable in what it covers
depending
or what it doesn't
cover.
Every insurance covers in vitro. It's just if your employee or you purchase the type of insurance that covers it. If a couple has zero insurance coverage for it, normal in vitro services could reach about $15,000. And so it's an enormous expense. But frankly, when you look at the numbers, when you look at that data as far as what's it going to cost me, couples going through adoption will spend more than that.
Well, I mean, you just look at the figures they say of what you're going to spend by the time the child's 18. 15 grand's a drop in the bucket.
It's nothing nowadays. That's 1 year of private school.
And on a personal note, what keeps you passionate about what you do?
It's different every day.
Yeah.
I mean, I have the best job in the world. I mean, there's nothing else like this. It's like telling somebody you cured their cancer kind of thing as well. I mean, you give somebody a baby who hasn't been able to have one, who's been told you're never going to have children, there's no greater happiness. And you don't understand that until it's happened to you.
Dr. Sanchez has shown us that the incredible advancements being made in the realm of fertility treatment is very encouraging to hopeful parents around the world.
Well, thank you very much, Dr. Mark Sanchez of the Florida Fertility Institute. Thank you for joining us on the program and for all the great work you do.